Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Georgie's Stripping the Dipping live on YouTube this evening. I'm your host for this evening, Colin Johnston, and we have an amazing guest this evening, a very, very special guest. He was a guest with the guys maybe about 18 months ago, so you're going to want to make a note, go back and listen to Series 1, Episode 30 after we've done here, and check out that fantastic podcast he did with the guys. I tried to write an introduction. There's no words really. So I will just say good evening and welcome, Mario Andretti.
Thank you for having me, Colin.
Wonderful to have you here, Mario, and fantastic to meet you. Well, absolutely wonderful. So how's things with you? Is everything well with you and the family? Everybody keeping okay?
All well, yes. We're all pushing forward.
That's good. That's good. Fantastic. Fantastic. And we're coming to the end of another motor racing season, and it's been sort of 18 months since the guys last spoke to you. Let's hear for yourself. Any highlights? Starting to look back over the year, what's been some exciting things that you're fondly looking back on at the end of another season?
Well, obviously, we live and breathe the sport, and I do it now through my son Michael, of course, and and whatever activities my nephew does. This Jared Andretti in sports cars, and then Marco, my grandson. But from Michael's standpoint, I think the highlight was to win the world championship in the Formula E with Jake Dennis. I thought that was quite a great feat there. I mean, a very competitive series, and then on to whatever else he has on his plate. Which is plenty. He has a very ambitious future set for himself. He just wants to grow to the point that to be at the maximum level of the sport. And I'm very proud of that aspect for him. It's something that I've experienced as a driver. And he certainly has to a point as a driver, but he wants to be, part of it as an owner. And as you could see, he's had some really respectable success in Indy cars, with several championships, 5 Indy wins with his drivers, winning, the marquee event, the 100th anniversary at Indianapolis, and on and on. I mean, it's, again, for us, it's our life. Michael, my kids were brought up in this environment, and the 2 boys that I have, they both pursued it. Jeff, the younger brother, Michael was not as fortunate along the way, but nevertheless, he's doing fine. But Michael is, again, his activity keeps me going quite nicely, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. And like I said, this will be for me forever. And I always say, when they put me in that box, I'll never retire. But when they put me in the box better have wheels on it. That's all I can say.
Goodness, yeah, a good way of looking at it, Mario. And, well, of course, yourself, you've been driving since we last spoke to you as well. We saw you at COTA, the fantastic experience you had in the modern Formula One car, thanks to the folks at McLaren. That was quite something to see. As a long-time fan, to see the famous Mario Andretti helmet on a modern Formula One car, that was spectacular.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I'm very grateful, to Zach Brown, McLaren, to give me this opportunity. Um, I'm just now trying to see if we can do a 2-day test so I can fit in the car properly and really start squeezing it the way I like to. But the experience that I had with the car was something that I was expecting. The power and the handling aspect. Again, I didn't get to really squeeze it the way I wanted to. I just didn't fit in the cockpit. It was just
Yeah.
too many things that, and it would have been a long process, to get that done. But nevertheless, it was a privilege, to have had that opportunity. And that's what keeps me going, quite honestly. Just as and I told Michael, I said, get this Formula One thing going. I said, I want to be the first one to fire up, the new Formula One car wherever we're going to be testing. he didn't.
Excellent.
He didn't say no yet. So
Well, I remember when Jackie Stewart got the Formula One team going. Jackie and the son went out together in the cars for
yeah,
a couple of laps just to put in an appearance. So I look forward to the Andretti Formula One and the family test session.
yes.
Oh dear. And well, speaking of COTA, Circuit of the Americas, we're coming up very, very soon to this big Formula One race in Las Vegas, which will be a spectacle. We'll see what sort of a motor race it is, but it will be a spectacle. And of course, you have history as well. Racing in Las Vegas in Formula One and in IndyCar as well. Do you have any thoughts on this big new Formula One race coming to Las Vegas?
Well, as you said, it's going to be quite the spectacle. I was just in Vegas a couple of days ago for other businesses, but I was able to drive where the circuit will be, and obviously they're feverishly working to try to make sure that everything is ready, and it's going to be just as you say, nothing short of spectacular in that sense. I again, it's going to be a marquee event.
Yes.
The way that the investment that's in it, and here again, especially for a city like Las Vegas, they're on a strip of all places with this with the race, and looks like with the investment they have, it's going to have a long life. So that's a good
Yeah.
another thing too,
Yeah.
because we've seen some of these street events, to come and go, being very gypsy-like, and but this one is here to stay for the foreseeable future,
Excellent.
and that's a good.
It is a good thing, and it might throw up something unusual as well, because they're talking about, I think it's midnight to racing. They're talking about very low temperatures now, drivers' hands getting cold, tire warmers. How will qualifying work? So we might get something different in terms of a motor race as well as just the spectacle.
Well, yeah, I think talking about tire warmers, I think they may need driver warmers as well.
Yeah.
Because this is desert temperature this time of
Yeah.
the year, so there's a huge drop between night and day in temperatures, and so we'll see how that will go. But it will be ultimately in the cockpit for the long terms of the race. It's going to be very comfortable. They
Yeah.
they there will be no problem, not too much sweating.
I suppose it's going to be more like 2 a.m. at Le Mans, perhaps, than a regular Formula One race, perhaps.
Indeed, yeah, something
Yeah.
like.
Mario, when you spoke so eloquently over a year ago about your start in motor racing to the folks here on the podcast, it was wonderful to hear you speaking about that first trip to La Mille Miglia and visiting Monza for the first time with your brother. I'm really into the history of the sport, and I would just love to know what it was like to visit that 54 Mille Miglia, to see those racing cars for the first time.
Well, 54 was Monza. Mille Miglia was a 55.
Ah, okay,
That
right.
was
Yeah.
actually a month before we came to America.
Right.
And again, as a young lad, just a young teenager, age 14 and 15, this was dreaming time, as you can imagine. I mean, the sport had captured me ever since I was able to reason, as far as I remember. And for whatever reason, I don't know that either. It's still today, because there was nothing really taking me in that direction from a family standpoint. But between Aldo and I, we gravitated to it. As you can imagine, I said this many times, that the sport at the time in Formula One, especially in Italy in the 50s, was very prominent. As you can imagine, we had the world champions at the time, and the Ferrari, Maserati, all of these, brands, being so prominent in there. So as a child, you could see this the motor racing was at the forefront of the news and
Mhm.
all of that. So, but again, going back to being able to visit to see firsthand.
Yeah.
The best thing is, I'm coming full circle because here was Sterling Moss who won it, of course, in
Yeah.
the Mercedes, and Dennis Jenkinson,
Yes.
which was
Yes.
unusual. And as time went on, I got to meet both of them,
Oh,
and talk
wonderful.
about it. And the thing that was quite interesting from my standpoint was to see how interested they were as to my knowledge of their exploit, at that time. So, and that's how we bonded, with
Yeah.
Sterling, and also with Fanjo. I remember that in '78, when Fanjo was he was at the Grand Prix in Buenos Aires, and Sterling was there as well. Um, and I got to spend several hours with both of them, and I think they enjoyed it as much as I did because they were surprised how much I knew about their careers. He said, these young lads today, they don't hardly know who we are. I said, well, I know who you are. I said, and I know, how much of an inspiration, both of you have been for me, at my young age. And, when I was just dreaming,
Yeah.
to be like you, and so on and so forth. So, great moments and great opportunities for me actually to meet these heroes of
Mhm.
mine.
And what a journey to be that kid in the Tuscan Hills in '55 and see Moss and Jenks,
Yeah, about that.
and then in your World Championship year to be sitting down with Fangio and Moss and
Yeah.
chatting over it. It's remarkable.
Yes, indeed. Very fortunate to have had that opportunity.
Um, Makes me think of sports car racing and Ferrari, of course. Quite early on, you were raced for the NART Ferrari quite early on, didn't you? How did you become involved with Ferrari and European sports car racing?
Well, it was clear that once I reached the top level in Indy cars, then
Hmm.
I've had opportunity to really express myself in other areas. And um, I I befriended Luigi Chinetti, who was
Hmm.
fielding the North American racing team, sort of the Ferraris.
Yeah.
And here comes the Daytona 24 Hours, and I said, man, I'd like to have a crack at that. And he paired me with Pedro Rodriguez, which was
Oh,
totally awesome.
yeah.
And Pedro and I just smashed very quickly. And we finished fourth. There was a car that was not the latest model, was a year old, and so on and so forth. But it was a great experience for me just to have that, and then I drove a Can-Am race, for Luigi Chinetti, also in Bridgehampton, Long Island. We were racing against McLarens and all that, and he actually was a little bit impressed, because we qualified third, with a
Right.
330 LM, and we had a clutch go out in the race. But nevertheless, these were times that very important for me, because
Mhm.
my objective was to really to learn, uh, develop my skills by road racing as much as possible. I mean, we're talking about in the mid '60s,
Mhm.
when I got to the level here in America that I wanted to be, and fortunately, that's when part of the championship in Indy cars, they started doing some road racing.
Yeah.
As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, in '65, when I won the championship that year, my rookie year, there was one road race, and I won that. And so again, that was a good thing for me. And as you could see, sports prototypes was a great thing for me to try to get involved in, because a lot of testing and a lot of miles, on the road courses. And so even with the Ford program, that's when I
Mhm.
expressed myself. Oh, I'd like to do that. And I said, I will do every test, all the tests and so forth. And here we are. I'm alongside of Bruce McLaren, of all people. And he and I just really hit it off really well. And we used to obviously not just during the day testing, but at night we go to dinner and talk about
Yeah.
talk shop always, and I would pick his brains, and then the next day just watch him. You know, he was such a technical driver, and I learned so much from him, and all of these things just worked. And then, you know, we won the 12-hour Sebring 67 together, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and all of these things just were working in my favor, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, I had Colin Chapman sitting in the wings, you know, that he had promised me that if whenever he, I thought I was ready to take a crack at Formula One, he said they would have a car for me. He
Yeah.
promised me that in '65 when I finished third behind Jim Clark at Indianapolis. And so here again, that was, you know, that was in my head to try to get to that point. And in '68, I said, Colin, I would like to do the last 2 races of the season. And sure enough, he said, Mario, I will have a car for you. And
Wow.
we had a test in Monza, and then but my first actual race was at Watkins Glen. Because in Monza, I did tests and I qualified, but they won't let me start because of the 24-hour rule, because I qualified during the first practice session on Friday. Then I had to fly to the States and race a dirt track race in Indianapolis,
Mm.
actually, because I was going for the championship. So I couldn't
Yeah.
give up, you know,
Yeah.
the points, and then fly back. And even though we had a deal with the promoters there,
Mm-hmm.
and they would waive the 24-hour rule.
Yeah.
There was a protest, and so they did not let me start. So my
Welcome to Formula One.
but so my first goal was at Watkins Glen, you know, for the
Yeah.
USP.
Uh-huh.
And I never actually seen the play. I never raced there before, but
Right.
the car really, the Lotus 49 really felt good to me.
I was going to ask you about that because it's perceived now to be such a historic step forward in Grand Prix car design. Yeah, at the time, did it feel like that? Did it really feel like a step above what you were used to racing in single seaters?
It was fabulous. It was like I was born in it, because I tell you why.
Yeah.
Because up to that point, my experience in road racing at that level was basically sports prototypes, you know, with heavier car and all that. And the other was in Indy cars, which, before that I had won some of the road races in IndyCar, but an IndyCar is more of a versatile vehicle. Basically, it's much heavier because of the ovals and all that, and braking and that. But when I first sat in the Formula One car in Monza, I said, I think I died and went to heaven. And it was just that it felt so right,
Yeah.
you know. And you know, I said, and I, tried to really put my arms around her as much as I could, you know, and that. But I said, I feel good about it, and it paid me off, because I surprised myself, quite honestly,
Mm-hmm.
at Watkins Glen, because next to me was Jackie Stewart, you know, and I was on pole. So, like I said, I was a surprise to anyone, but pleasantly surprised. So it was a great beginning for me.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And sort of sticking with Formula One, you moved on in 1970 was the Works March. There was a few Formula One races with them, wasn't there? And then for 70, then for 71 to Ferrari.
Ferrari, yes.
As a works driver, when did the connection with the Ferrari works first happen? When did you first meet Enzo Ferrari?
I first met Enzo Ferrari in Monza in 1969 when
Mm-hmm.
I was teamed up with Chris Amon
Mm-hmm.
in a sports prototype in 1,000 Ks
Yeah.
in Monza. And here again, I expressed my desire to, do maybe some Formula One. And in those days, quite honestly, because of my contracts, I was offered especially after, I'll go back. I was offered a full ride by Colin Chapman
Hmm.
in 1969 after I did a couple of races in '68, and guess I couldn't do it, and guess who took my ride? Emerson Fittipaldi. You know, he becomes world champion a couple of years
Yeah.
later. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I again, it was just one of those things because of my commitments here in the States, and financially, I just couldn't make that move at the
Hmm.
time. And but I was going in the right direction. I says, there's going to be a time when I'm going to devote, my full time to Formula One, and
Yeah.
it took a bit longer than I really wanted to in that sense. But all of a sudden, I'm 35 years old in 1975, and I said,
Yeah.
got to do it
It's
now.
time. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
it worked out. It worked out good.
It worked out well. And in that period, then, of course, one of the all-time great sports car races, that 1970 Sebring 12-hour,
Yeah.
where, how would I describe it for anybody who hasn't seen that race or read about that race? Single-handedly, Mario Andretti carried the Ferrari team effectively to beat the works Porsches and to beat, famously, Steve McQueen's Porsche. Basically, we beat Peter Revson. Steve McQueen was there as well. But that was a remarkable race and a very modern sports car race in a way, in that it appeared to be flat out all the way, rather like sport car racing is today.
Well, here again, we were obviously there were three factory cars, and
Mm-hmm.
two spiders and a coupe, and both the two spiders they were the newer cars. We both broke down. We both had the same gearbox issue, gearbox bearings, but actually we were, I think, 11 or 12 laps in the lead with about 2 hours to go. And, here we go. So we're on the sideline, and the third car was the only car left that was running third at the time with Giunti and Vaccarella.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ready to leave behind my plane there because the next day I had a sprint car race in Reading, Pennsylvania. So I said, tomorrow for Gary. I said, thank you very much. I'm
See you
leaving.
later.
No. I said, wait. I said, I might want you to finish the race. I said, I said, I don't know. So because, you don't fit in a car and all that sort of thing. But, Peter Revson was obviously driving, along with Steve McQueen. And he did the lion's share of the driving, like 9 of the 12 hours. And he was all of a sudden, the leading factory, Porsche, had some issues. And he goes into the lead. And they said, Steve McQueen just took the lead. And here was poor Peter out there, And I said, I'm going. And so I drove like a man possessed, The car actually felt quite good, quite honestly, But nevertheless, and unbeknownst to me, there was a question whether I would have to stop for fuel before the end. And sure enough, it was like 5-6 minutes from the end. I had to stop for fuel, and and then he went by me, and then when I took off, I think I probably killed about 17 photographers going out of the pits, and I caught him up and passed him. I felt bad in that sense because of Peter.
Poor Peter.
I felt that.
But McQueen deserved it.
I had a different objective here. So it was a very satisfying, obviously, finish, as you can imagine.
Fantastic. And if anybody who's watching hasn't seen the film of that on YouTube, of that event, go and watch it, because it's a spectacular race. It's one for the ages, so it is a brilliant race. You mentioned Vaccarella, of course, who you shared the car with there. Am I right in thinking you never raced at the Targa Florio?
No,
Just never happened, or?
No, Colin, the biggest problem was a conflict of interest because Targa
Mm,
Florio was always at Indy during the month
yeah,
of May.
of course, yeah.
And and in those days we used to spend like 3 weeks total, 2 weeks practice. There were two
Hmm.
weekends of qualifying, and now it's condensed down to about a week and a half.
Yeah,
But and so while I was doing India, I just couldn't give it up,
of course.
and for Targa Florio, it was a matter of spending time there because to learn it and all that. You couldn't just go there and
Yeah,
and race.
yeah.
And so for some, for those reasons, it never happened for me.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
wish it would have, but it didn't.
Yeah, it's a pity. It's a pity. And again, you mentioned Mauro Frageri. You worked with him, obviously. You worked with the great Colin Chapman and the other folks, with him, Tony Southgate and Tony Rudd or whatever. It's not right to ask you to compare them, but what did you think of these great engineers that you worked with, and was there one that you felt more of an affinity with, perhaps, than others?
Well, as you could imagine, different personalities and so on and so forth. But there was you could sense, the brilliance in
Yes.
any one of those, and at a given time. You
Hmm.
knew you were in good hands, if you will. And so again, when I look back, I said how fortunate have I been, to be able to race with it. I mean, I, you know, like I said, I've been around long enough, to have had those opportunities to have some great engineers on my side, and the value that they brought to the, to the game, confidence that they give you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Adrian Newey for uh,
Oh.
it's incredible, just the memories that I have. And I only did one full season in IndyCars in 1987,
Hmm.
and every race that I dropped out of, which was quite a few, I was in the lead, and
Yeah.
he and I really, really understood every aspect of what I was trying to sort of, to explain to him, as
Yes.
far as setups and so forth. And I never had in my career a car so balanced along the way as when I was with Adrian. It's
Oh, wow.
He just had that knack of understanding and looking at every aspect, looking at wind, looking at track temperatures and all that. You know that Indianapolis in '87, I was quickest every single day of practice. I was on pole, and I led 173 of 200 laps in that race, and then dropped the valve, and I was a lap and a half in the lead.
Oh,
And so, like I said, and you know that we were on the grid, and about 20 minutes or less before the race, before we started, we, we decided to change the front springs, like a 5% change. And that's how close we had the car. And,
it's
I,
perfection.
yeah, perfection. Adrian and I, whenever we, get to talk, we kind of reminisce in some of the things, and not just India, other areas,
Yeah.
uh, how well we clicked.
Oh, but how do you get over a day like that? When it's been so close and you've been so dominant. It must take some time to sort of come down from the high stroke disappointment of something like that.
Yeah, it's ready to put a gun to your head.
Oh dear. Well, here, something I noticed today. You're quite prolific on Twitter, and it's lovely to see. Not least, we're getting close to the festive season, and it's not Christmas until Mario Andretti shares his Christmas tree with the world. But I noticed today you retweeted a lovely photograph of you and James Hunt. Let me see if I can bring it up. Actually,
Yeah,
it's a
well,
lovely,
yeah.
and I saw it just as I was getting ready to come on here. Great memory, great friend. Here's to you, James. I thought that was lovely. Um, just off the back of that, is there is there any fond memories of James you could share? I'm sure plenty of fond memories of James. Is there anything suitable for our audience that you could share?
Yeah. I mean, off the track, different way during
Yeah,
travel and all that. It was fun. He was
yeah,
one of those individuals that he was just easy to be with and fun to be with in every way, and never took things too seriously at the time like that. So I enjoy that. I enjoy
yeah.
that part very, very much. On while we were on the racetrack, we tried to kill each other, but then you see right after that, we'd have a beer together. So that's the way it should be.
That's the way motor racing should be. And of course, then the day that James secured his world championship, 76, it's quite often overlooked the fact that you had that tremendous win at Fuji that day. And I guess in a way it was the start of the rise of Lotus again, at the end of that sort of development season. That was a fantastic win you had in 76. And it was around that time they were already working on sort of the ground effect principle. Lotus were heading that way.
No, not really, actually. But here's the thing, though. I mean,
Yeah.
in '76, the way Colin and I came together is the team, the Parnelli Jones team that I was driving for. They decided to pull out Formula One at Long Beach. Like the second race of the season, and unbeknownst to me, by the way. And the day after the race, I was having breakfast at the Queensway Hilton. It was, just right out, one of the hotels outside the track. And the next couple tables down was Colin all by himself. And we were both, basically, I keep saying, with a chin in our socks, just commiserating, a terrible weekend. And so I joined him. And we started talking, and I said, Colin, I'm out of a ride now. I said, I was told just before the race, but one of the announcers, Chris Economaki, says, Mario, what's your reaction on the fact that they're pulling out of Formula One? I said, oh my God, I didn't know. Anyway, so he said, Mario said, I wish I had a decent car to give you. He said, I had the worst weekend of my career just this yesterday. And so I said, Colin, if you'll have me, we'll make the car. We'll get it working. We'll do better. And sure enough, he that's it. We joined. I joined him, and the best thing could have happened, for me, because I think that the good thing here for me was the fact that I got Colin to really just concentrate on the racing. At the time, he had so many distractions, building the car business. He had a boat business and all that. And I said, you have to delegate the responsibilities here. I said, you have to come back racing. And his dear wife, Hazel, said, Mario, I said, that's the boy. So I'm glad you told him that, and here it is, whenever you got Colin to really concentrate on the racing, that's the time you wanted to be driving for him.
Yeah.
So that's the time when he created several world champions, as we know.
Yes.
So he had the peaks and valleys, he was, sometimes he had a tendency to get bored, when things were really going so well.
It was going so well,
yeah. And but again, it was fortune of my life, to be able to be with him at this period. And again, this it's really an interesting story how the ground effects actually was something of it happened out of when I was driving for the March, it was 721 in 1970. If the car had side pods.
Oh yes. Well, the undercut underneath
pods,
it. Yeah.
Side pods. Because Robin Hurd was, he was aerodynamicist, by trade, as a professor. And so anyway, he was looking at all the different aspects of it. And I remember I was driving, I was testing in South Africa, and I'm looking and I'm thinking we're at altitude, less power and all that. So I'm thinking, I wonder if those side pods actually create frontal area. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Yep.
we decided to take them off. I
Mm-hmm.
was driving the Vince Granatelli team, actually. And here I'm going, and all of a sudden I'm flying the front end. So that means they were giving me some downforce. So
Mm-hmm.
actually we had to put a lot more wing level in the front, so it negated, you know, what we thought we were gaining.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, we were at Hethel and just sort of, you know, just throwing things, just, you know, brain, you know, storming. And I brought this up about the march. I said, you know, with these pods, I said, if you have, and these were relatively short.
Yeah.
If you look at the side angle, the car on the side angle. So I said, you could probably increase the length of it from wheelbase to weight inside the wheelbase,
Mm-hmm.
and then, but they had no fences, you know, to direct the airflow, and
Yep.
they put the fences all as far down as you can, and you maintain the flow, you direct it, and so obviously we were getting definite effect out of this, but
Mm-hmm.
not until we were testing in Hockenheim. Testing in Hockenheim at I think it was called a Bosch curve that connected the two long straightaways. It
Yep.
was a long right-hander. And I remember testing, you know, as the car, obviously you get, you know, quite a bit of leaning to the left, which means I was closing the gap,
Yes.
you know, on the side pod.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I was gaining quite a bit of downforce in the middle of the corner.
Uh-huh.
And so I said to Colin, I said, there's something going on here that's actually good. So I explained that. So he sent some of the, one of the mechanics in town to buy some strips of plastic. So we bolted this plastic on there. I said, ooh, la la. You know, all of a sudden, you know, we're getting quite a bit better, more downforce. But of course, 2 laps later, the plastic, you know, would wear off.
Wears away.
You lose it. And that's
Yep.
why if you look at during the 77 season, at one point we had bristles, like, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, like we were sweeping the track. So the reason we did that, because at least there was not as much effect, but
Yep.
it was constant.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
the season progressed. Then he came up with the movable skirts,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the trick.
Yeah.
And so that's how this thing just started developing. And then the other thing that's interesting actually here is that they were wind tunneling the car, and we were getting erroneous data out of it. It was not repeating on the track for me.
Mm-hmm.
So Colin, the brilliant as he is, he's the one that developed the moving road.
Ah.
Yeah, with
right. Yes.
the belt
In the wind tunnel. Yep.
in the wind tunnel, and that was a whole new deal. You know, as far as really getting the correct data, you know, to be able to do all the right things, and opening up and the diffuser and diffuser angles, and this the whole thing. So it was a work in progress, you know, in 77. And so it was so much fun, you know, to just be part of all that. And again, you know, but that's Colin.
And then in 78, perfection with the Lotus 79, it just detailed and
everything was cleaned up, you know, like we had indoor brakes in the 70, 78, you know, and so to be able to have a better flow, you know, when the exit of the diffuser, that brought the brakes inside much closer to the gearbox, which created a problem for us because we were getting so much heat transfer from the gearbox, and the Lotus 79, and actually we had brake issues at every race. Yeah, Ronnie and I, and we tried to tell Colin, and then he would check the brake. Oh, there's nothing wrong. Once you come in, you know, if you find wife
cool style.
says, "What's wrong with them all? You guys are crazy," you know. So some of the things were not perfect, but nevertheless.
Uh,
So,
I just see somebody's made a comment here. Let me see if I can pop it up. I wonder what Colin Chapman would make of modern Formula One. I suppose so many restrictions nowadays on the design
well,
of Grand Prix cars.
Colin would go with the flow and
Yeah,
probably just do a little better job, you know.
yeah,
It's just a matter of it's to be a race engineer is just to be a good lawyer, you know. You read the rule book and you know, it's how you read the law. That's how you're going to win the cases in court, and it's how you read the rule book. It's how you win races.
that's it.
So,
Yeah,
and,
there's no spirit of the regulations, just the regulations.
yeah, regulations and how do
Yep,
you do you interpret it, you know,
yep,
and how do you maximize it and all that. It's that. But you know, Colin, here's the way I look at it. I see from a driver or engineer standpoint, the brilliant engineers of driver of yesterday will be
mhm,
the same today. The champions of yesterday will be the champions today, and the champions of today would have been champion yesterday. There's no
here,
question
here.
about it in my mind. It's not that all of a sudden, you know, today the human element is different. You know, obviously you have different perspectives, different, you know,
Yep,
but uh, um, you know, it's just maximizing what is available to you. That's what it is.
that's it. That's it. It's wonderful to hear you say that from your huge experience because it's something I've always felt that Nuvolari or Fangio or Senna or Hamilton, if they were all together, they would be an equal in any period. It's
Any, yes, yes, any of the decades, any epocha.
indeed, indeed. I suppose talking so much about history, which is my thing, so perhaps we should maybe move things forward. We've talked about this year. Let's past 2024 and what's ahead for Andretti Global and all the series. And you've spoken before about how racing drivers really don't need to leave the United States to have such a fulfilled career. Looking now at everything that Andretti Global's involved in, they nearly don't have to leave Andretti to have a complete career in so many disciplines that Michael has expanded into now. But is there anything exciting on the horizon for 24? Any drivers or any particular series that you're involved with that you're really looking forward to watching next year?
Well, I'm always, you know, just like any other fan from sideline to look forward to all the majors, no question.
Yeah.
Uh, with Michael, obviously, I'm very interested in what he's involved with directly. I mean, it's let's face it. I mean, he's got the Andretti Waukesha, you know, and supercars in Australia and all that.
Yeah.
That you know, all of it. You know, when I look at the end of the weekend, okay, where were we? Where was he? Blah blah blah. You know, I have plenty, you know, to be looking forward to, and again, you know, I said this before that I'm very proud of Michael, you know, to have these ambitions in the
Mhm.
sport because we live and breathe this, and that's our life. We have no side business. This is motor racing has been what I've made a living for my family from day one, and it continues with Michael. So, uh, and here again, you know, you know, he's looking at the Formula One aspect, you know, which is, you know, the pinnacle. That's I always say that that's the Olympics of motorsports, you know, the international aspect and all of that.
Mhm.
And so we keep working, you know, to try to achieve, you know, you know, to be accepted,
Mhm.
and I think we have reason to be optimistic, you know, and that's the only thing I can say.
That's good.
We're not stopping.
Wonderful.
We're not stopping.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And as fans, it's wonderful to have the Andretti family involved now in so many branches of motorsport and bringing that huge experience and the huge heritage to all these different branches of the sport.
You give
It's all
opportunities
positive.
also, you know, if, you know, and, you know, you talk about diversity, you know, Michael,
Mm.
you know, even as far as, you know, some female drivers. He's had
Yep.
he said currently he has also, in the Indy Lights, which is a supporting series in Indy cars, and he has in Extreme E, has a wonderful young lady driver there. He, he had Simona de Silvestro, part of his team. He had Danica Patrick was the only female driver that won a major championship when she won Japan in Indy cars and so forth. So, we're proud of that aspect, and
Rightly so.
continue to cultivate that. By the way, so I look at Mike is he's tried to open opportunities. Here, like you just mentioned a minute ago, potentially for some young, some American drivers that probably would have some difficulty otherwise to get involved. And he's saying that no matter what, he will have at least one American driver, on his Formula One team, and there's nothing wrong with that. To give some of these young lads, something to potentially look forward to and try to earn the position. And he's planning obviously to field the Formula 2 team, something that you can cultivate, some talents there, and which he's done this in the IndyCar series as well. He's going into NASCAR, both, actually Marco is going to be driving full season next year in the trucks, and then move on to the Cup Series at the top level, 2026 there. So we're busy. We're going to be busy. I like that.
Fantastic, yes. And I've seen an announcement about Liesma lineup as well. Fantastic in the sports cars as well. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, wonderful. And Marco as well. You said he's going to be in the Cup Series. We'll maybe see him in the Indy 500 as well next year.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, that's the plan.
Excellent. That's great to see. And great to see that there's plans to develop the American drivers in Formula One as well, because it's much too long since we've had an American driver win in Formula One since your good self.
Yeah, it's when you look back at there hasn't been a lot of participation now. With the 3 races even in this country, why not feed the situation? There's a matter of a lot of pride. I mean that national pride, and being Formula One, as you can imagine. So you have your, I know myself. Just nobody knows this. I know, but in 1977, I won the U.S. Grand Prix at Long Beach, and I won the Italian Grand Prix, my home
races,
my birth Grand Prix the same year, in Monza, and how delightful was that for me? You see what I mean? There's a special pride into that, that goes into it, just like in the Olympics. You're representing your own country. There's a lot to be said for that, to have that opportunity. So all of it plays.
Excellent, wonderful. Well, Mario, as we bring things towards a conclusion, Georgie, our boss, always asks fun questions. Last time, I believe she asked you about pineapple on pizza and got a very definitive answer that pineapple does not belong anywhere near pizza. So she's asked me this time to ask you, cappuccino after 11 a.m., yes or no?
Oh, cappuccino, yes.
All day for the cappuccino, you're happy with that?
Yeah, you could have cappuccino in the afternoon, yes.
Yeah, life's too short to avoid cappuccinos.
Cappuccino in the afternoon.
Oh dear. Well, as we come to a conclusion, Mario, is there anything you'd like to share? Is there any messages you want to put forward? Is there anything we should look out for Andretti-wise in the coming months?
All I say is see you at the races.
Well, that's a good mantra for life. Just see you at the races.
See you at the races.
Well, sir, thank you so much for your time. It has been a joy to meet you, and it's been lovely to chat with you about the history, and we really appreciate it. And thank you for all you've done and all your family does in motorsport.
You're very kind. My pleasure.
Thank you. See you soon, sir. Take care.
You bet.
there we go, folks. Wonderful. The one and only Mario Andretti. What can I say? Wonderful of him to share his time with us, and fantastic to get those insights and to talk a little bit of history with him. Just a bit of housekeeping. Remember, you can watch us back on YouTube. Make sure and follow us on the podcast and all the socials, Georgie Stripping the Dipping. And we'll be along with another episode very soon. So until then, I'm Colin Johnston, and I'm saying cheerio. Good night.